Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Today, we're gonna jump back into some malicious compliance. Our first story today comes to us from KV the Greatest. Get my priorities straight? No problem. Let's jump right in. I always thought about this awful job I had and I just knew I had to have a malicious compliance story from it. Crazy how I never thought of it until now. So in 2018, I was a freshman in college, and after being unemployed for a month, I took a job at a major sports department store where they don't wear blue. So my store manager, who we'll call Daniel, was a major phallus. He'd make crude jokes that get him reported to HQ, gossip about employees to other ones, and generally favor men over women, which I'll explain. So I worked at this store for nearly a year, and the turnover rate was abysmal. They'd hire many people who were still in high school and expected them to devote 20 hours a week, which, of course, was not what they'd signed up for, as many wanted about 12 to 15 since they were involved in extracurricular activities. However, Daniel showed no remorse and would often drive people to quit by either dropping their hours to less than 5 or hiking them up to 30, knowing that they couldn't work them, which often left us understaffed. The store was attached to a mall, so we got a lot of petty traffic that would turn into actual sales. However, due to the lack of training by Daniel and his poor oversight in appointing people to train new hires, the customer service in the store was falling dramatically, which halted sales, which led to a decrease in merchandising. The store was a $12 million store when I started, but had fell to $8 million in a few months because HQ was losing money by stocking a poorly managed store. Daniel took out his frustration on the staff, and here is where the malicious compliance starts. Daniel was on a good reviews crusade and often demanded us to comply with the customer, even if they were dead wrong, just so they'd leave a good review. I worked in footwear, and there is nothing like the anger that arose when I told someone that the oh-so-popular shoe that they desire is out of stock in their size. Because a customer got upset with me over their size being out of stock, I was charged with cleaning the bathrooms. I never did this because, like the overachiever I am, I learned how to work in multiple departments without getting a raise. Thus, Daniel was a wee bit appreciative and never asked me to clean it. Now, I am easily disgusted. The mere thought of rotten food or bugs or anything I deem ungodly deplorable will get me dry heaving. And I explained this to Danny Boy, but he replied with, "Just get it done." So me and Brent went to clean the men's bathroom, since it was a two-person job, and might I mention that Brent's disgustometer is also non-tolerant. So we sprayed Febreze, took out the trash, and ran out of there for our lives, leaving the dirtied mirrors, toilet paper floors, and crap-stained walls untouched. I came in the next day and was told that I did an awful job and that I was never to clean the bathrooms again. So when Daniel asked me to do it a few weeks later, I reminded him of his instructions and we all watched in marvel as a manager cleaned it, which he said was a big deal since it was not in his job description, but yet it wasn't in any of ours either since he had told many of us that the store had janitors in our interviews. But that's just a mini malicious compliance. See, I had grown tired of Daniel in my waiting months at the store. Many of my friends had quit or found better jobs, the hires got worse, and Daniel got much ruder. He attempted to show dominance at any chance he could, and even forced a "do we have a problem here" conversation with me when I didn't rush to change into the new company uniform that was not in my size because I was helping a customer. Which then resulted in me getting chewed out because my chest was popping out and my figure was showing too much as a result of the medium shirt I was forced to wear. But Daniel committed to his paladin-esque crusade and denied us basic human rights in the spirit of good customer service. A pregnant coworker with a doctor's note was denied a chair while working the register. A coworker with seething cramps was not allowed to go home, though she couldn't stand. And another was barred from taking off to witness her daughter's prom send-off. But in contrast, a guy left his phone at home and he was allowed to not only get it, but take the rest of the day off. Another called in because of a hangover and was told to rest up and that he wouldn't receive a strike. And his favorite star boy was allowed to disappear often and be on his phone right in front of Daniel, and he didn't even bat an eye. Even the men there obliged to the notion that they were treated far better than the female staff. And one day, Daniel chose to single me out. Not to toot my own horn, but I am a hard worker, and Daniel abused that by scheduling me my shifts in different departments and speed training me, knowing I'd catch on quickly. I even had to train new employees, though I wasn't a lead because I got good reviews and conducted the most footwear services last year. And after I demanded a raise, my $11 an hour, 35 to 45 hours a week summer paychecks were looking nice in spite of the horrible managing. But school started up again, and I informed Daniel that I needed to return to my somber 15-hour weeks that I had last semester. He said that I was lying and that he never gave me such little hours, till I hit him with a pic of the schedule that I had from March. He didn't like that chin tap and replied with, "I'll see what I can do." So next week, I see the schedule and see that not only was I scheduled from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. for inventory, but those also were my only hours. 6 effing hours. But I think, oh, they ain't doing you dirty, OP. This is obviously a mistake. So I seek out Danley the Manly and tell him of his mistake, and he responds with, "That wasn't a mistake. You said you needed less hours." "Yes, but I can't work past 10 because I have school. And I just wanted to drop to about 15 to 20 hours, which is more than I did last semester." "Well, everybody has to work inventory." "But Lindy and Richie don't have it because they also have school. Plus, Lindy, Richie, and Michael all have more hours than me, but they're all in high school and just started working here." Noticing he is running out of excuses, "Well, they are more available than you, and we award availability. If you can free up some time, then maybe we can talk in a month, but you need to get your priorities straight." You got it, dude. So as someone who takes disrespect with a pillar of salt, I considered quitting right then and there, but my anxiety kicked in and began to worry about cash flow. So I went home on my break and complained to my family, and my mom so eloquently expressed, "Just quit the damn job if it's got you this damn stressed. It ain't like you got a family to feed." So I took my single, no child having, empty-bellied butt up there and worked the last 2 hours of my shift. The air in the building hit different, knowing I wouldn't have to spend more time awake there than I did in my own home. I was calm, cleaned the footwear deck efficiently, and made sure I was the last to clock out. As I approached Daniel at the exit, I said, "So yeah, this will be my last day here. I got my priorities straight, and school is my number one. I recently got an internship there, and I'll just go there because they're more accommodating to my needs as a student. Thanks for the time here. Sucks that we couldn't work it out." And with that, I watched his face turn white, and he said something about not being able to work for the company again due to my lack of a 2 weeks notice. Didn't care, was never going to work there again. And now, every time I come to the mall and he happens to see me, he doesn't look me in the eyes, speak to me, and rushes away from the counter so he doesn't have to ring me up. You got what you wanted, Dan. Wait, OP, so your manager told you to wear a uniform shirt that was too small, and then told you they had problems with your chest popping out? I think you probably should have gone to HR immediately, and this would have been dealt with a lot more quickly. Do me a quick favor, have a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're not actually subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. Our second story today comes to us from Black Metal. "I need you to be done by 10 p.m. Let's jump right in. Context: I used to work at a Kroger Deli when I was 19. This would have been 2009. I think I made it 6 months there before they forced me out. That's a longer story with no malicious compliance in it, unfortunately. This specific Kroger had the bakery, the fried chicken station, and the deli under one section. In this store, we had a 3-tiered management system for hourlies. There was your department lead, the supervisor, and the manager. The way it's supposed to work is that supervisors and managers report any sort of problems with the hourlies to the department lead, and they take it up with them, unless it's something serious. So that way, if either the manager or supervisor are confused about a certain procedure, the lead can explain it to them without the hourly getting needlessly harassed. So I worked second shift, and I mostly maintained the fried chicken area because I was the only one on second shift who actually enjoyed doing it. Closing down the department started between 9 and 9:30 and took around 3.5 hours. It would take closer to an hour and a half if the morning shifters would do their closing routines for the shift change, but they didn't, and we get left with an F-load of extra work and an F-load of dishes. Didn't really bother me. I was young and the overtime pay was welcome. Didn't really do anything else with my time anyways. Now some bonus context, Kroger is unionized and they had this: if you work over a certain amount of hours in a 6-week period, you're immediately full-time with benefits. And they wanted as little full-time employees as possible. So normally I'd get weeks where I'd only work one day because of the extra 3 hours we ended up being there. This particular set of weeks we had 2 people quit, and the newbies brought in to replace them were fired. One called off because she got her wisdom teeth removed, and they fired her for that. Shameless. So I landed myself in a precarious position where I was about to be given full-time, but they really didn't want me to. So my manager pulls me aside and says, "Hey, you guys gotta stop messing around back there. You take way too long to close, and we're starting to get corporate breathing down our necks." After explaining our situation and how we literally do almost all of morning shift's work throughout the day, I was told that if I couldn't get the work done on time, then I wouldn't be working here. Now, this is a big no-no for 2 reasons. One, as stated above, manager and supervisor are not supposed to interact with hourlies as they generally have no idea what our job entails. I've been written up for not filling empty slots of the packaged cold chicken items when none were made for me by the morning shift. They took 8 hours to properly prepare. Reason 2 is that you do not threaten your employees, especially the ones who comply maliciously. 10 p.m. is my new designated out time. The chicken station worker is the last out because cleaning a rotisserie oven is a big fat B. But even still, the other 2 stations don't finish up until 11:30ish. After we close at 9 and I reveal to my cohorts that I have been instructed to leave at 10 lest I get full time and the wrath of management, the other 2 start to be about having to finish my work when I intercept them with, "No, those aren't your responsibilities. After I leave, it's morning shift's problem. They can be to the manager if they have a problem with how I leave it." And that's exactly how it goes. Manager comes down to me telling me about morning shift's complaints about the condition of the kitchen, asking me why it was left like that. To which I explained that my newly defined curfew that he had issued had caused me to miss a few things. I was written up and I kept doing it and kept getting written up until getting fired for completely unrelated reasons. I would start a whole new 6-week rotation and still leave exactly at 10 p.m. Kitchen an effing mess. Same excuse every time. Even though he personally told me not to leave until the kitchen was clean again, I left at 10 p.m. I complied so hard that it became a no takesies backsies situation. OP was asked down in the comments why they didn't just stop making chicken around 7 p.m. and then tell the customers they just didn't have any, and he said that they never wanted to inconvenience a customer if they could just F over the morning shift instead. Our last story today comes to us from Pokey1984. My grandma complied with her husband's request for over 50 years, much to his chagrin. Let's jump right in. Something someone said to me today reminded me of this tale, and I thought some of you would appreciate hearing it. So this is my grandmother's story. My family has been telling the tale for decades. Grandpa himself told it to his daughter's fiance as a lesson in not underestimating his new bride. Grandma told it slightly differently to my mom when she and my father were engaged. This is somewhere between the 2 versions. It's a lesson in be careful what you wish for, as you just might get it. Personally, I've always thought that it was hilarious. My grandparents were very old school. Grandpa got a job working for John Deere as a teen and worked his way up the ladder to foreman, then manager. Grandma was a typical housewife in the 1950s and was held to typical housewife standards. She was to cook and clean and be prepared to entertain Grandpa's business associates at a moment's notice. It was her job to make sure the children were taken care of and never got in her husband's way. She was expected to have dinner on the table at 5:30 sharp when he got home from work. Her house and herself were to be impeccably kept at all times, etc. They were progressive and well off enough that Grandma had her own car. She was expected to use it to run the household errands and take the 4 kids to appointments and such. It was important that her husband not be bothered with such things. The household and family were her responsibility. He had a job. Well, one day, Grandpa arrived home from work, and not only was dinner not on the table, but Grandma wasn't even there. The kids, teens at the time, hadn't been fed. Their homework was still on the kitchen table, there were unwashed dishes in the sink, and a dozen other little chores hadn't been done yet. Most importantly, Grandpa was inconvenienced. He'd been home just long enough to let his frustration stew into anger when Grandma's car pulled into the drive. He began shouting at her before she'd even had the chance to set down her purse or take off her jacket. He ranted about all the things she hadn't done because she was out running around when she should have been at home taking care of the house and making his dinner. He worked very hard all day to provide for this family. Was it too much to ask for a hot dinner when he got home? She'd had a very good reason for not being home, but he never let her tell it, accepting no excuses. But she was a good wife, so she intended to let him vent for a while, then she would serve him supper and explain exactly what had gone wrong. Then Grandpa screwed up. As sometimes happens when we speak in anger, he began to blame the wrong thing for his irritation. He began to blame the car and her access to it. He said something to the effect of, "You don't have any business out driving around anyway. You should be home. I should never have let you start driving in the first place. Women shouldn't drive." "You don't want me to drive?" Grandma asked calmly, retrieving her keys from her purse. "Fine, then I won't drive ever again." And she set those car keys on the counter, put her things away, and served dinner. And bless her heart, Grandma stuck with that declaration no matter how much more difficult it made life. Grandpa had to take afternoons off in the middle of the week when a teacher scheduled a meeting. He didn't get a moment's peace on the weekends between grocery trips and taking the kids to activities or doctor's appointments or for haircuts or clothes. He had to drive Grandma to every Saturday salon appointment. Previously, Grandma had taken herself and the kids to church, letting him sleep. Now he had to wake up early on Sundays to take them all himself. Grandpa was nearly as stubborn as his wife. He held out, expecting her to apologize and ask for her keys back. She never did. Instead, she simply rearranged the household schedule so that he could handle all the driving. Months later, after never getting a single weekend to relax, after having dinner pushed back nearly every day because he had to drive someone someplace, he finally gave in and apologized. He tried to tell her that he was wrong and that she should start driving again. He tried to tell her that he now appreciated all she did to make his life easier. He all but begged her to take those keys. I suspect that Grandma has always disliked driving because she never did take back those keys. Nothing Grandpa said or did could convince her to get back behind the wheel. He'd said she had no business driving a car, and she was going to hold him to that declaration no matter what. For over 50 years, until the day she died, Grandma never drove a car again for any reason. Not after the kids graduated and moved out, not after Grandpa retired. Even after Grandpa's death in the 80s, she still refused because my husband always said that women shouldn't drive. Wow, this is definitely a story from a different time. If I told my wife anything like this these days, she'd slap me so hard even Google wouldn't be able to find me. You have to admire both of their dedication in this story though. Grandma not driving at all for the rest of her life, and Grandpa realizing he screwed up but not willing to admit it, and so he just kept doing the driving himself. What a great story. Check out all 3 OPs at the links in the description down below. Thanks for watching, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.